Here we got the second generation Specialized Levo. More or less the same, only minor changes between 2019 and 2021. It was kind of a game-changing bike with its 700-watt battery, a super secure internal battery mounting system. The mission control app to tune the motor was outstanding. Top 2 battery monitor system became the benchmark. The comp is the middle of the road with its alloy frame. From 2020 on, it comes with the big 700-watt battery. I'm going to cover how it rides on trails. I'm going to cover how it rides on gnarly downhill lines. I'm going to tell you how it jumps. I'm going to ride it with the stock parts, and I'll tell you how it rides with the upgraded parts. I'll briefly cover how to mullet the bike, how to set up the suspension, and what to look out for. The second generation Levo is a full 29-inch bike with 150 millimeters of rear wheel travel. If you replace the rear shock with a longer 210 by 55 shock, the travel goes to 157 millimeters. The bike definitely benefits from the longer shock if you ride hard. Specialized says up to 160 millimeter fork. I tried it with a 180 and it didn't work very good. The Levo is a fantastic trail bike, a few years ahead of its time. It gets up to speed quickly, it holds its speed. The combination of a powerful motor and the trail-tuned suspension makes this bike an absolute rocket ship on flat trails. The range is outstanding with the 700-watt battery, and it's not the best with the 500. All this efficiency comes with a compromise. The rear end hangs up on square-edged hits. The shock upgrade does address the rear end hanging up greatly, but you have to remember this is a trail-tuned bike, not a full downhill rig. The second gen Levo is not the best jumper and it's not the worst jumper. It gets up to speed quickly, so I never had issues casing jumps. If you're going to ride this bike for its unintended purposes like me, you need to upgrade it. Here's what I did to make it survive. I got a new rear shock. The size is 210 by 55. The original shock is 210 by 52.5, so this is a few millimeters longer. I would highly recommend going with a shock that has high-speed compression adjuster like a Fox Float X2 or a Cane Creek double barrel. You will need high-speed compression adjusters if you're jumping this bike. And then I tried it as a mullet. Let's talk about the mullet. This is what I did to make it work. I overstroked the fork to 170. This raises the bottom bracket up a little bit. I went with a short sidewall 2.4 Maxxis tire on the front. I put the shock in the high setting to raise the bottom bracket. I went with a tall sidewall Vittoria tire 2.6. This raises up the rear end some more. Probably the most important upgrade, I put 160 millimeter crank arms on this. I got them at Praxis. They're super cheap. If you just pop a 27.5 wheel in this bike, it's horrible and almost unrideable. How did the mullet ride? Well, it turns better, it's a bit more nimble. The bottom line is I missed the speed of a full 29er wheel because that's what this bike is. It's a super fast trail bike. I do love 27.5, but it's not right for this bike. On gnarly trails, the stock setup is pretty bad. I was getting pinch flats, cooking the rear shock, exploded the rear wheel. Yeah, it's a trail bike. Fully upgraded for its unintended purposes, it's another story. The Levo handles gnarly trails fairly well. At this point, with all the upgrades, I would call it an all-mountain bike. The rear shock has a short stroke. I found it best to run 30% sag. I usually like to run 33 to 35. I ran max volume spacers on the stock shock and on the upgraded X2. Things to watch out for on the second gen Levo: do not run a coil on this bike, it voids the warranty. There is some brands out there that say their coil shock is built for the frame, but do you really want to gamble your frame on it? This long linkage creates a lot of leverage and side loading on the shock, and what happens is it can snap. If you're buying a Levo, make sure you pop the battery out and make sure it says 700 watts. The 500 looks identical except for the riding. The early motors definitely had problems. My motor blew up, but Specialized was sending new motors out and it seems like they fixed the problem. The second generation Levo, in a nutshell, it's a fantastic bike.